And thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Yes, it has been a challenging year this past year, and more challenges to follow. We've had a very productive year at Maine Preservation, so I'm going to be talking about our past year. Our fiscal year is April 1, 2019 through March 31st of 2020, so we've just ended a short time ago. And Maine, of course, is a very large state. And we have been around the state, as you will see this year. So, out there working to get preservation done on the ground. And instead of going into depth today, what I'm going to be doing is a brief series of synopses of things that we're involved in. So you might say that we're going to go into the breadth of Maine instead. So let's get started. I can make this work. Here we go. Maine Preservation's mission is to promote and preserve historic places, buildings, downtowns, and neighborhoods, strengthening the cultural and economic vitality of Maine communities. I want to start out with discussing two new grant programs that came our way. And the first is the Northern Border Regional Commission. This is a joint collaboration among Maine Preservation, New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, Preservation Trust of Vermont, and the Preservation League of New York State. And we all submitted a grant application and received $1 million, maximum amount from Northern Border Regional Commission. 230,000 of that was set aside for subgrants in Maine, offered through Maine Preservation. This was to complete community-driven preservation projects to address negative economic shifts produced by the decline of the forestry industry. I'm going to go through quickly the awardees for this program, and the first is the Center Theater in Dover-Foxcroft, and they received funding to take the building on the right, which has been a cafe, and turn it into a second theater, so they can actually use two theaters at once, right in the middle of their in-town area. We also gave funds for the restoration of frescoed plaster and repair to Musée Culturel du Mont Carmel in Lille. And our advisory trustee, Don Sear, has been involved in this project now for 36 years. It's quite beautiful. And next time you're in Aroostook County, please take a look. The Commons at Central Hall, also in Dover-Foxcroft. We had two excellent applications from there and didn't feel we should punish them for that. And this will be for installation of kitchen on the first floor and expanding its community services for everyone from seniors to daycare. And Belfast Maskers in Belfast, funding for heating and cooling and a bathroom. This will allow them to expand theater use throughout the year when they open back up. Finally, the Farwell project in Thorndike, and this is a very interesting project, very volunteer driven. They've achieved half of their laid out comprehensive plan, 5 of their 10 steps. Their next step is to actually set up a general store in the old general store location. Also, we'll have a multi-use facility where they're doing storytelling, museum, and a maker space for people in the area. So, exciting project that's already moving along. All these projects, by the way, were funded back at the end of the winter before we really knew what we were getting into. Two new grant programs. The second one then is a 1772 program, a foundation program. And this is for the first time. They provided Maine Preservation $100,000, all for Maine, to subgrant to preservation projects here. Matching grants of up to $10,000 are awarded to nonprofits seeking to rehabilitate and maintain historic structures. So I'm going to run through these rather quickly. PV Memorial Library in Eastport for roof work, masonry repair, and cupola repair. Reedfield Union Meeting House in Reedfield for repair and restoration of cornice and windows. Seguin Island, this was actually, Seguin is the first lighthouse. It was commissioned during the Washington administration. This is the 1857 version, and that was awarded for solar panels, inverters, and batteries. The light station has lost its cable to the mainland, so allows them to be self-sufficient on the island. The Masonic Building for Tides Institute in Eastport, and you'll be hearing about that later from Hugh French. So that was for repair and restoration of the second and third floor front masonry wall. For Washburn Norland's Living History Center, the Universalist Meeting House in that facility for installation of roof and roofing elements. Castle Tucker in Wiscasset, historic New England's a beautiful building from 1807, conservation of 8 of their windows. Francis Perkins Homestead. The Francis Perkins Center has just purchased this house after more than 150 years in the Perkins family. So now the center is owning and beginning its operations, but first they have some work to do. So this was for security and to repair and reshingle the barn. Greater Portland Landmarks headquarters in Portland, 7,500 for masonry repointing throughout the building. Greenville Junction Train Depot, and this was $5,000 for repair and replacement of exterior siding and installation of exterior doors and windows where they're missing. Johnson Hall and Gardner, which is raising substantial funding, and we're helping with restoration of windows and installation of new windows where they're missing and other maintenance. The Tate House, the 1755 house in Portland for updating existing fire protection and security systems and updating their building assessment. And the Harrington House, Freeport Historical Society for repair to their existing historic bulkhead. Hammond Hall, this is for Schoodic Arts and in Winter Harbor, and this will be for a condition assessment. They're asking for help on understanding their building a little more thoroughly. Same thing for Laudholm Farmhouse as part of the Wells Reserve, this beautiful facility, dating parts of it from as early as 1720. So we'll be helping them with condition assessment and also supporting an exterior paint project. And the Waldo Theater, which will be doing expanded condition assessment as well. And finally, Nearing Homestead, the 1974 house, the by far youngest property on this list, and this will be also for condition assessment. Now, our field service program, moving along, offers preservation guidance to stewards of historic buildings throughout the state, and financial and technical resources. It advises them on that. Property condition evaluations, feasibility of alternative uses. We also work with the Maine Steeples Fund. And as a special focus, we're really looking at the grant recipients and applicants that we saw this year. So there were 62 of them. And so we're not restricting ourselves simply to those that we were able to award funds for. Some of the projects are quite good, but they're not quite ready. So what we want to do is use our expertise to help get groups ready to go to the next level. Some of the places that Field Service has visited recently, the Schubel Marsh House in New Gloucester, a 1770s house, possible 1760L on that, listed in the National Register. Strathglass Park in Rumford, where Maine Preservation is looking at this house, 25 through 27 Erklas. It's a duplex, and of course was built along with the rest of the town by Hugh Chisholm, about 1904. C.P.H. Gilbert, nationally known architect, was the architect on that. I think we visited the Kavanaugh House recently. 1803 period, federal period house, rather, and very significant house, which is undergoing substantial rehabilitation, which is being done very well. We're also visited Wilson Hall. This was almost a goner. The whole cupola was falling into the roof, and it was scheduled for demolition last year, but it is being saved now. And Jonathan Hall has visited with the new owner who's doing work on it. We've worked with Yarmouth on their efforts to set up a local historic district. And through our Steeples engagement, Medway Congregational Church in Medway, right near Millinocket, and we did a conditions assessment, pre-assessment for this project. Our most endangered historic places list has been around since 1996, and This helps us save places as an objective of our own work by listing them. We view this not as a negative in any way, but rather as a focal point for both our efforts and statewide efforts in this regard. So our scorecard, we've done pretty well, given that all of these are really threatened when we add them to the list. So 60 have been saved, 33 are in motion, 21 are still threatened, and 20 are demolished. So I'm going to show you the 2019 listings. The old townhouse in Belgrade, built 1814, was used for annual meetings for half a century, and then was used by the local cemetery and is now being redone by the Belgrade Historical Society. Well-known architect Frederick Savage designed Calendar House in Bar Harbor, built 1901. It's on the grounds of Jackson Laboratory, and it's vacant. But Jackson Laboratory has in the last year begun to explore options for it. Henry Tallman House in Bath. This is a bit of a problem because the owners have left the country, and it's very difficult to wrest these kinds of properties from their investors, from the mortgage company that has them. So we've discovered that in this house and also in the Challoner House, which is an early house in Lubeck. And it was also a boarding house, which is also unusual. So we're working again, seeking to reach that mortgage holder to move this project along. The Charles Jordan House, one of the finest Second Empire style houses in the state, suffered a serious fire, but the owners have done a great job of cleaning it up and getting it ready. And we're seeking to help them find a developer to rehabilitate their family property and return it to service. The Fales Homestead in Thomaston, one of the last 18th century houses in that town, and working again, it's been abandoned for quite some time, and we're working with the existing owner. Fort Gorgeous in Portland Harbor needs a long-term management plan and funding to begin to move forward on its rehabilitation. And then camps and cottages we listed statewide. Many people are taking these on and completely gutting them and removing all their historic features, starting over. There's a different way of doing it, and that is to basically reuse the existing features and yet update them to the degree which they wish. And so we're seeking to encourage that approach. And our final most endangered is Reedfield Union Meeting House. You may have already noted, you saw that earlier in our grants. This list was put together before we even knew we were going to have 1772 grants, so it was a great pleasure for us to circle back and be able to help with its rehabilitation. This is all trompe-l'oeil, so-called, trick of the eye. There is no blasters, there's no hoods over the windows, there's no arches in the back on the front of the church. This is all done with paint. Beautiful, beautiful example of Schumacher and the last in the state. Since 1998, we've celebrated excellence in historic preservation, leadership, rehabilitation, and craft through our honor award. And the winners for this year are Old Surrey Village School. This is one of our favorite things to do. This was on our 2015 most endangered list, was slated for demolition. And now it's won an honor award and has been nominated and accepted as in the National Register. The Webb House, which is part of the Rufus Porter Museum, received an award. Hartford Fire Station for adding the addition on the left side and upgrading the historic part on the right. The Mildred Fox School in South Paris for affordable housing, done with a Vesta. Ford Reike and a team redid the Grand Trunk Railroad Depot in Yarmouth, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on. 80 Exchange Street was redone right in downtown Portland with a new mural beside the park, Armies Park. Butler School, also done by Avesta in conjunction with a second project, Payson House, as one project in two locations. The Notre Dame de Lourdes in Saco was redone as apartments, innovative approach to this historic church. The Sawyer Building in Portland, redone as a commercial building using tax incentives. And 17 Alfred Street, also using tax incentives. In fact, this one, the National Park Service put on the cover of their annual report on the state of the tax credits throughout the nation. Mary Barn in Edgecombe, Another excellent project, which this has been used from everything from a rock concert venue to a staging area for a contractor. Stevens Hall, which Mastaway Development and Matt Marl are doing a great job throughout the Stevens campus, and this one was the one they finished this year. And the Spirit of Preservation Award went to Molly Siegel and Allison Richardson for swimming around Isle Haute to raise money for the lighthouse. And finally, our Earl G. Shuttleworth Jr. Preservation champion was Rennie's Inc. for their great work in downtown historic buildings, and they're undertaking their second historic tax credit project as we speak. Protect and Sell program matches interested buyers with preservation-minded sellers of historic properties across the state, and we secure preservation easements to protect the properties in perpetuity. This provides peace of mind to individuals seeking to sell and safeguard historic properties. We may have seen this last year. The Grand Trunk Railroad Depot, which we saw earlier as an award winner, was actually first a Protect and Sell property. We worked with the Village Improvement Society, who owned it for 50 years, and were able to sell it. And it was opened as a branch bank of Gorham Savings, owned by, as I mentioned a little earlier, Ford Reike, and an honor award winner this year. And we're also working with the McGlashan Nickerson House in Calais. This is owned by the National Park Service. It is available for a 60-year lease. And it rehabilitates in lieu of a down payment or rent. So basically you pay nothing, you fix the house. In essence, a kind of homesteading project. The estimate for complete repair, $250,000. When you think about it, that's 60 years is a lot longer than most of our repairs last. So you really are getting, we think, a good deal on this. And the exterior needs a lot of paint and some other repair, but the interior looks good. The Patricia Anderson Summer Fellows Program honors Pat Anderson, a longtime trustee and past president of Maine Preservation, who died about 11 years ago. It's funded through donations from the pass-through 2 galas and from other gifts. So we offer historic preservation grad students 9-week fellowships split between hands-on site work with a trades firm and program work with our staff. Now, this is one of the things that we do, and in fact, almost everything I've mentioned, we're redoing in the current era. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But we are actually setting up to accept 4 fellows this summer who will be virtual fellows, except for one. They are not in Maine, so they won't be working in Maine. They'll be working with us online. And we partner with Preservation Timber Framing, Bagala Window Works, and the Heritage Company on this program. But unfortunately, we don't think they'll be able to do the trades this summer because of quarantining. Maine Historic Tax Credit, we are working very hard on that. Maine preservation is viewed as at the core of this tax credit. $540 million have been invested in Maine in the last 11 years using the historic tax credit. So it's up for renewal. We didn't get the 10 years we were hoping for. We've got a temporary reprieve of more than 5-year extension to the tax credit. So we're in much better shape than we were when this went in. We've also done our 4th economic impact study on the effect of this, so that when we go back to the legislature, we can lobby them with all the facts on how incredibly effective this has been. It's raised more than 350% more property taxes and paid for itself in the interim. So actually all of the taxes that have paid for credits have been reimbursed through this program. And finally, we are advocating for historic places for Maine's Future Fund. This would be grants to match the kind of grants that we're getting from out of state and to match them in state, and to preserve historic properties for Maine's bicentennial. So thank you very much for your attention. Look forward to talking with you in a few minutes about a few of the things that we're doing in the future.